Chapter 2. The afternoon sun broke through Ireland's persistent grey clouds, bathing the village square in soft gold. Edward Ashford, having been sent by Sir Robert to deliver another stern notice to the tenants, found himself once again navigating the narrow, muddy lanes. As his boots squelched against the damp ground, he tried to ignore the stares of the villagers, some watchful, others cold. They regarded him as though he carried trouble in his coat pocket, and perhaps he did. Edward glanced down at the parchment in his hand, its ink-stamped commands clear and unforgiving. Another notice of overdue rent. He felt the weight of its purpose, though he had grown weary of the task. The names on these papers were not simply marks of ink. They belonged to men, women, and children. Sir Robert spoke often of loyalty and order, but Edward wondered if either could grow in soil so bitter.
Excuse me.
Edward's head snapped up as a soft yet sharp voice cut through the quiet square. He turned toward the market stalls and saw her, Brigid O'Donoghue. She stood beside a small wooden cart, one hand firmly clutching the edge, while the other pointed accusingly at a portly merchant. The man's cheeks flushed red beneath his bristling beard.
I paid you 2 shillings for this grain, Mr. Cullen.
Brigid said, her voice clear and unwavering, though her hands trembled slightly.
You think I cannot count?
I think you're a liar.
The merchant growled, loud enough for the crowd to hear.
Or perhaps your family's debts have muddled your mind.
A quiet ripple passed through the small crowd that had begun to gather, and Edward felt a pang of unease. These arguments could ignite quickly, and Brigid, though composed, stood like a solitary flame amid dry grass. Without thinking, Edward stepped forward.
Perhaps there's been a mistake,
he said calmly, his voice drawing the attention of both parties. Brigid turned to him in surprise, her green eyes narrowing with suspicion.
And what business is it of yours?
She asked sharply. Edward hesitated, caught off guard by her challenge.
None, I suppose.
He admitted.
Except I dislike seeing honest folk taken advantage of.
The merchant scoffed, waving Edward off as though shooing a fly.
This is not your concern, sir.
And yet here I stand.
Edward replied evenly. His tone was polite, but the steel beneath it was unmistakable. He turned his attention to Brigid.
You said you paid 2 shillings?
I did.
She answered, still weary of him.
And I'll not be cheated of it.
Edward reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a coin.
Then let it not be said that justice cannot be bought,
he said, offering the shilling to the merchant. The man's face twisted with annoyance, but he snatched the coin all the same.
Fine.
He grumbled.
But don't come crying when you've wasted your silver, Englishman.
And with that he turned away, muttering curses under his breath. The crowd began to disperse, though not without lingering glances at Edward and Brigid. For a moment neither spoke. Edward tucked his gloved hands behind his back, watching Brigid with a faint, uncertain smile.
You didn't have to do that,
she said finally, breaking the silence.
I know.
Edward replied, tilting his head slightly.
But it seemed the right thing to do.
Brigid regarded him carefully, as though measuring the weight of his words. The suspicion in her gaze softened, though only slightly.
You think that makes you a hero?
She asked, her voice edged with irony.
Hardly.
Edward answered with a low chuckle.
It makes me someone who dislikes dishonesty.
Brigid studied him for a moment longer before nodding, almost to herself.
Well then, I suppose I owe you my thanks. Mr. Ashford, was it?
Edward blinked in surprise.
You know my name?
The whole village knows your name.
She replied, her expression unreadable.
We know all the names of men sent by Sir Robert.
The word struck Edward like a small stone, unassuming yet sharp.
And do you know me then?
No,
Brigid said, lifting her chin slightly.
but I know you're kind.
Edward opened his mouth to respond, but Brigid turned before he could speak, clutching her sack of grain and heading back towards the village lane. He watched her leave, the faint breeze catching at the loose strands of her auburn hair.
Who is she?
Edward murmured to himself, though he already knew the answer. Brigid O'Donoghue. There was something about her, a spark he hadn't seen in the solemn faces of Sir Robert's tenants. She was fire and pride, stubborn as the land beneath her feet, and Edward knew with certainty that this would not be their last meeting. As he made his way back to the estate, Edward could not shake the memory of her voice, nor the way her words had lingered in the air like a challenge he wasn't certain he could meet.